Hello and welcome again to the ILI History Makers Leadership Podcast. We are committed to helping leaders live and lead by the 8 core values of the leaders that change history. And by doing that, together, we accelerate the spread of the gospel. Today, I have the honor of having a conversation with my good friend of many years, Bishop David Muniri Thagana. He is the founder and general overseer bishop of Glory Outreach Assembly. It is a African-initiated denomination based out of Kenya, but present in several East and Southern African nations. And he has been an amazing leader and a fellow companion in the kingdom of God by multiplying ILI, and we've been into many places of the world together, and today you all get to hear his story and some of the insights from leadership. David, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's go right in. David, Bishop David, tell us about you. Where do you come from? Did you grow up in a Christian home? Obviously, you are a Kenyan. So tell us a little bit of your story.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I was born in Kenya, in the central part of Kenya, a place that is called Karatina, on the slopes of Mount Kenya. In that region, by the time I was being born, around the independence of Kenyan history, there was no church in that area, there was no Christian in that community. And I was born from a family where nobody knew Christ. So what I got exposed to was the African traditional religion. And like many African countries, men migrate to the urban areas in search of jobs. And therefore, the boy child is normally left to be taken care, to be raised by the grandfather as the male figure. So my grandfather, being a strong worshiper and follower of the African traditional religion, introduced me to the worship of African traditional religious life. And that's all that I got to know about the sacrificing, about milking the cow and pouring a little bit of milk to feed the ancestors, about sprinkling a bit of milk to Mount Kenya, which was perceived as God to be able to give us rain, for grass to grow, for cows to produce more milk, and life continues. So that was the introduction to my religious life as I grew up.
Wow, so no Christian background, but obviously you eventually became a teacher, an educator, which means you went to school.
Yes, when I was around 18 years, it was time to go to high school. And therefore, the high school required that every student joining goes with a Bible, a pair of shoes, and clears the school fees. And having come from a very poor background, then they sold the only cow that we had so that they could pay school fees, buy me a Bible, and the school uniform that I needed. I was very interested in knowing why the Bible and what is this book about, and therefore I decided to read it. And having no background of Christian faith or anyone to help me understand how to read it, I just decided I was going to open at random and read from wherever it opens. And surprisingly, it opened at 1 John chapter 1. And I started reading right there from verse 1 that God is right, and we have all sinned. If we say we have no sin, we make him a liar. The truth is not in us. And somehow, as I continued reading my new Bible for the first time, I started feeling guilty inside me with the concept of Mount Kenya is the God, and with our life being hinged around getting the rain from Mount Kenya, I definitely did not want to make that God a liar, who in my understanding was the mountain. So I kept reading, and when I got to verse 9, 10, I said, but if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and he will cleanse us from all unrighteousness. That sounded like a solution to me, but the question was, how do I then confess? And there was no one to explain that to me. I kept asking for a long time, what does this mean? How do I confess? But one day, one of the people that I was bothering very much asking the question told me, there is a place where they do what they call a camp meeting for youth. And this camp meeting is done when the schools are closed. It's only in April. So if you can pay the price to walk there, I am sure they will explain all those questions you've been asking us here. Sure, I did. I waited. April, I walked and found the conference. They answered my questions. And that's how I met Christ. And I gave my life to Jesus.
Wow. What a beautiful example, David, of that scripture that says that the word will not return void, but will do what it's called to do.
Yes.
And a good experience, a good example of what we call, of John Wesley called prevenient grace. God giving you access to that Bible. The first of all, finding that scripture. It's interesting. I don't know if I ever told you this. This is a very similar experience to how my grandfather came to Christ.
Okay.
Through a text of scripture that was actually tore from a burned Bible that he started reading and became curious about it, which led him to ask questions that were answered, which I guess explains why you have a passion to be the person that explains to those without Christ.
Absolutely. Actually, when the preacher explained the scriptures that day in the camp meeting, he made an article and said, who would like to come and confess their sin? And he had already explained what that means. Well, that is what I had actually gone there to look for an explanation. And then when he said, before I pray for you, I need you to tell me a few things that you'd like us to pray for today, so that when God answers them, you'll be encouraged to live a life of prayer, because that's what we are introducing you to. And out of nowhere, probably from the Spirit, I told him, number one, I don't want anybody to have to walk for 3 days to find out what confessing is, what this gospel is about. And number two, I don't want to find any child waiting until they are 18 to put on a shoe and for a cow to be sold. And if God gives me a family, I wouldn't want them to have to go through the poverty that I went through. And he looked at me, he smiled. Then he said, you got the answers to some of this. Number one, you go tell your story yourself, and therefore nobody will have to walk for 3 days.
Okay.
I know that he was introducing me to my lifetime of evangelism and sharing the
right.
gospel. And I was 18 that time. Then I didn't know that he was actually praying for me to get involved in all the compassion ministries and putting shoes in other children's feet, paying school fees for other children. It all came from there. Now I understand.
Wow, David, that's interesting. Well, let's hold on to that thought, because yes, we want to go back to that, because one of the beautiful things about the organization that you lead is your commitment to compassion ministries, to, like you said, putting shoes in the feet of children that couldn't otherwise afford it, making the gospel available to them, helping them to get an education and all of that. So, okay, fast forward then to sometime in the 1990s, I suppose, and now you've gotten an education, you are a teacher. How did you actually become, at first, I guess, Pastor David or Evangelist David?
God answered the prayer of that man who led me to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Reverend Muiruri. God answered that prayer because I I passed my exams. I was able to go to the university to be trained to become a high school teacher, and I got the opportunity to grow as a Christian in the university through Christian Union. And when I was growing up in the university, doing a lot of missions in the Christian Union, Bible studies, prayer, then I got posted by the Teacher Service Commission, the government arm of teaching, to go and teach in a school called Karima Girls High School. In this school, there was no Christian Union, there was no presence of God, so I went and I started the Christian Union in the school. The Lord used me even to read the principle of the school to Christ, the teachers, the students. It became just a nice place for discipleship, for growth. And that was in 1988, April. And after a few years, around 1989 there, it was almost certain that everyone knew Christ, and the gospel was being enjoyed and experienced within the school. And the question was, how do I take these people that have been discipling here in the school to practice evangelism in the neighborhood outside the school?
Yes.
And so we went to a nearby village called Donyonjeru, or New Market. We did evangelism. 200 people gave their life to Christ. Then the next question was, how do you disciple these people? Because you can't bring them into the school where I was teaching. And so we started GOA, or Glory Outreach Assembly, right there. And that's how I became a pastor. And from that point, ministry grew and went on and on and on and on until 2001, when I became the bishop of the churches that we have been planting.
Right. Yes. It's an interesting thing. You became a pastor because there were sheep to be shepherded.
Yes.
There were people that needed to be discipled. And I love hearing those stories, David, particularly because I have been to Karima High, at least drove in front of it. I've been to the area where you grew up and where you ministered. And I had the privilege of being, I think I even preached at the Donyonjeru Church, the first Glory Outreach Assembly Church. That was in 1990.
It was April 1991.
April of 1991. That was, interestingly enough, David, about the time I was getting ready to go to seminary. In August of that year, September of that year, that's when I started my seminary education to go serve on the mission field.
Okay.
So then for a few years, that church grew. You planted more churches. Around 2001, you had a budding, small network of churches.
5 churches.
5 churches, and a great group of leaders. I met them later on, but then that's where our lives intersect. That's why ILI offers you the opportunity, or somebody offers you the opportunity to attend ILI. And I remember you told me there were two big takeaways from that training that you've received that helped change GOA. Do you remember what you told me, what those 2 takeaways were?
Yeah. First, number one, it became very clear to me how important it is to be able to know my vision and my purpose, and not just to know it, but to be able to write it down. Something that I had not even heard before.
Yes.
To think through it, to pray about it, to write it down. And apart from just envisioning that in a written way, to be able to go next step and write down the mission on what I'm going to do to get to what I am envisioning. And even more importantly, to go beyond that and set a goal, one thing that I would do that would completely help me get closer to what I was envisioning. That really changed me a lot. Plus, my passion got so ignited for the harvest
Yes.
when I got to see the picture of the world. And during that time, for the 5 year, for the years from April 1991 to 2001, the 5 churches, all within my community, my people around the school of Karema where I was teaching, familiar place. So when I came to the training, I learned that that is my Jerusalem, and that God still expected me to reach the entire world, which is bigger than my Jerusalem. And during the training, I not only learned that, but I also learned how to develop the Acts 8:1-8 plan
Yes.
for my vision,
Right.
which really helped me and changed my thinking. And I sat down and began to answer those questions. Then I went back, sat with my readers, and we went through the same questions again. That is how our ministry just opened up,
Right.
and to where it is today.
And Glory Outreach Assembly truly became a global reaching church with branches or churches in Africa. I know you have connections and people in Europe, in Switzerland, and in the United States, right? At least those. So tell us about where is Glory Outreach Assembly today?
Today, Glory Outreach Assembly has 270 churches.
Okay, stop there. 5 in 2001.
Yes,
25 years later, 24 years later,
270.
270 churches.
And not just the 270, but very informed by strategy. Meaning that we have many of them within our Jerusalem, but we still have many of them within our Samaria, places that we would never have even considered reaching with the gospel, because they're definitely different from us. We have churches that are in what we call our Judea, resorting from that strategy. And when we talk about Europe, when we talk about Turkana and Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, those are our ends of the earth, all informed by our strategy.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wow. And that is very impressive. And God has really allowed you to flourish in ministry and to reach a higher level. What are the main challenges that you faced along all of these years as the church?
I faced many challenges, many challenges. I think part of the challenges had to do with myself as a person. My background, I didn't really have much exposure, so I had to really deal with that feeling that here I now have an international vision, a global vision, and my background still keeps following me up and limiting me in thinking. I dealt with that by simply seeing myself the way God sees me and listening to what God is saying, and was able to deal with that. The educational issues also were quite major obstacles, because with my education background, and now God has called me into full-time ministry. I had to go to resign from teaching to address those limitations and those obstacles and go to a Bible school, pursue theology, and as I continue to see the need for leadership, even continue further and do masters in leadership and continue narrowing down to where God was calling me.
Yes.
These are major obstacles that I dealt with. I also faced financial obstacles because the vision was becoming bigger and bigger with very limited resources.
Right. Yes.
And but I'm glad that through the training that I had received in the ILI, I was really learned about stewardship, and therefore I knew it's not really much about how much resources that are within my disposal. It is how I'm using those and how I'm stewarding those resources.
Right.
Of course, I learned how to mobilize resources for the vision,
Mm-hmm.
which enabled me to deal with the challenge of resources.
Which is what you're doing right now.
Which is
you
what
have
I'm
you have become a great mobilizer of resources, deploying resources from the richer parts of the world to put shoes in the hands in the feet of the children, right?
Yes, and the Lord has been gracious. He has helped us to share the vision, to be able to mobilize and get involved, more people involved. He has brought people along our way that even from Switzerland and other places, and we have invested in their lives, and they have gone back and told our story, and the Lord has continued to bless us.
Yes. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to go back to Kenya because there was something that I thought about talking to you while I was preparing for this. I've read some statistics on Kenya. Kenya is 85%, or 85% of Kenyans identify themselves as Christians. And it says 33% are mainline Protestant. The Anglican Church is very important there, right? The Church of Kenya or Church of England. 20% are Catholics. 20% are evangelical or Pentecostal or charismatic. And then there is a number, 7% of the population of Kenya are part of what the statistics call African initiated churches, which GOA, Glory Outreach Assembly, is one of them. So that's where GOA God fits. And so in that context, how could you, it's almost like you would say Kenya's been reached with the gospel. So what is your harvest in your Jerusalem and even in your Judea? What is the harvest field? What are the challenges of a place like Kenya that considers itself to be Christian?
Yeah, those statistics are politically correct numbers because people, as long as they have a baptism name or a name that they were given at birth by their parents, whether they believe it or not, then they are considered in the 85. As long as they are not subscribing to any other religion like Islam or Buddhism or any other, they are considered Christians. So, but that 85% also includes one of our greatest challenge, which is the challenge of nominalism, where people will simply be identified as Christians, but in actual fact, they are not. And some of them may never have even ever been to church at all.
It's more of an identity than a faith in that case.
Yes, and that's a big challenge that comes with that. The other big challenge that comes with that is associated to that nominalism and it is reflected in those statistics, is that if you are born in a family of the mainland churches, Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic, if you are born in that line, the society considers you to be a member of those churches.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a very common statement that is usually used when there is religious conflict in many rural homes of Kenya, when the man or the woman, the father or the mother or the grandfather stands up and says, "We will not have two denominations in this home." That is a familiar statement told to especially younger people who may have gone to school, gone to college, and come into encounter with the gospel and became evangelical, spirit-filled, and came back home. Right. And now they are trying to move away from what the family is identified usually as That's a big challenge, big challenge. Of course, the other challenge of looking at things from those statistics is that missions is easily misled into thinking that the nation is reached and therefore doesn't need anybody to reach them. It doesn't. It actually, those statistics puts people in a comfort zone that the nation is Christian. We can just relax, and therefore, what we have done is we have gone out in our mission philosophy of letting people know we do not look at the nation in terms of political boundaries, but we look at it in terms of people groups, tribes. Because in the same 85% Kenyan nation, we had the Samburu in 2003, whom we went to engage for the first time, and they were asking us, who is this Jesus you're talking about? Is he President Kenyatta? Is he President Moi, the second president? Or is he the third president? And if he is as important as you're saying, why haven't we heard of him like the other presidents? And how much money has he paid you to come and campaign for him? To them, 2003, not long ago, a tribe in Kenya, Samburu, are still thinking that Jesus is a political leader. In 2004, another tribe that we adopted, the Turkana, and we're asking them, do you know Jesus? And they are telling us, ask the area chief. He's the one who keeps the register of everybody. There might be a name, Jesus, there in the neighborhood. They have no clue who Jesus is. And that now tells you that when we think of Kenya as an 85% nation, we will not notice that we have Samburu people, we have Turkana people, and many other least rich people groups who have not heard the gospel. So those are the challenges of those statistics.
That really have no idea
No clue
of who Jesus is. That is, I was going to say fascinating, but it is also challenging because there could be in any nation, in any political nation of the world, a situation like that, and there probably is. There are still people groups out there that think that Jesus is somewhat related to the president or the former president of the nation. That's a fascinating story, David. Now, I don't want us to miss one of the most beautiful aspects of Glory Outreach Assembly. You mentioned in the beginning about putting shoes in the feet of children so that they don't have to sell a cow to buy shoes to go to school, or some similar experience. I know I've been to your children's homes. I've played with the children in those homes. I have my own story of praying for the salvation of street children in a city called Naivasha and seeing them come to Christ years later. Tell us a little bit about what has that vision of putting shoes in the feet of children become? What do you do as Glory Outreach Assembly for the children?
It has become a beautiful story of transformation. Started with one young boy, Boniface Minor, when I went to preach in Karatina Market, and I was preaching about John 3:16, God's love, and the boy reasoned. There were many people in the market listening to the gospel, and then I made an altar call, whoever would like to give their life to Jesus, and people came to the front, a big number of people. In the midst of these adults is a boy, small, tiny, 11-year-old boy with his glue. And I, as usual, said, lift up your hands, believe God from a sincere prayer in your heart, led them into a repentance prayer, and they got saved. I said, now you go and look for Bible-believing churches in this area, connect yourself, be discipled. Let's meet in heaven or somewhere.
A typical evangelist meeting, right?
Yes, and everybody thanks me, shakes my hand, and they are excited. But the boy remains right there. with his glue. He says, I say, bye. He says, no, I want to go with you to the place you have been
Explain
describing.
the glue to
The
us.
glue
Why does he have glue on his hand?
The glue is the street children use glue to fight the hunger pangs.
Mm-hmm.
So when they because they have no food, when they sniff glue, they feel hungry, and sometimes they feel high. So they don't
They forget the hunger.
recognize.
Yeah,
they forget
it's
that.
it's actually not just any glue. It's a shoe
Yes.
maker's glue that is highly toxic,
Mhm.
and that gives you a quick high if you sniff it up your nose. So just to explain that. So okay,
So
what was his name again?
Boniface.
Boniface.
Yeah,
All right.
so
So
eventually-
Boniface is standing there next to you. Then what happens?
I was not able to beat him in the argument of leaving him behind. So I decided to turn on my pickup and drive away. And he jumped on the open part of the pickup. He jumped into her,
Okay.
this glue. And I said, well, he's going to jump out because it's normally a tradition. The street kids will normally jump on open tracks. If there is anything they can eat, they will go eating there.
Yeah.
But when you're driving uphill, they jump out.
They jump out.
And
Okay.
they can jump out with something that you
That you had in your yes.
So I said, "Oh, I have nothing in the boot, so he'll jump out." The guy did not jump out, and finally, I ended up going with him to my house, and he became the first orphan that we ever took into their
Oh.
homes. He changed my perspective, my thinking. Obviously we had managed to get the boy out of the street, but we had not managed to get the street out of him. So he came with all his street habits. You give him food, he pours on the floor. And he wants to eat from the floor. He says, I am not worth eating from a plate. You give him a bed to sleep. At night, when I wake up, I find him just sleeping on the floor. I said, I thought he has fallen from the bed. He said, I'm not worth sleeping in a bed.
Wow.
That took 9 months to get that street mentality out of him and to make him feel part of the family, feel loved. And that completely changed my thinking. And I went on from there, bringing in more and more as the opportunities arose. And long story short, our compassion story has 1,000 kids who have passed through our hands. They have been loved, they have given education, parented, taken care of, that being the only home, gone to the universities and colleges, got jobs, and some of them have come back to give back, to manage. And it is such a sweet story to see some of the kids we brought up are the ones managing those schools now.
Wow.
They're the ones managing those homes. Others are coming to church to serve as leaders in the church. And from that one boy, today, those 1,000 kids have gone to different places. And currently we have 8 orphanages where we have about 400 orphans in the home today as we speak. And God is taking care.
So you and your community are raising 400 children, having raised over 1,000.
Mhm.
Why? When I went to Kenya, I was also exposed to another harsh reality of the African world. Why so many orphans?
Many reasons. One reason is because of the war. Most of the African countries have experienced war or conflict or domestic violence or conflict in one way or the other. The result of that war or that conflict is children abandoned by people running away for their lives and eventually finding their way to the street. So war is a major cause. Kenya has been peaceful for the better part of our history, but we have become a refuge for the nations around us.
Okay.
So you'll find a lot of refugees and kids from different Burundi, Congo Rwanda during genocide, Congo, South Sudan, Somalia. We have some of the largest refugee camps because of that,
Yes.
which eventually leads to a lot of children in the streets. Now, other than war, the second main cause is the diseases, particularly during the season when we had HIV/AIDS epidemic.
Yes.
Many parents died. and kids who are left alone,
Yes.
daughters, mothers of daughters died and took the kids to their grandparents who could not take care of them. And that's why one of the homes for GOA is purely for HIV positive
HIV
kids.
positive kids.
Because
I remember.
that's a major reason. Plus abandoned children, because nobody wants to watch their child die in their hands because of staffing. They would rather put them somewhere in the street in the hope that a good Samaritan will come and pick them.
Yes, that's a sad. I remember being at your former home, and I think it was you that pointed to a village across on the other side of the hill. Said that house is empty because the entire family died from HIV/AIDS. That was a long time ago. Fortunately, today it is somewhat under control, but still the effects of that lingers. And so, David, quickly. Tell us a little bit about another aspect that I found beautiful is the conflict resolution. How did you end up dealing with getting involved with peacemaking and conflict resolution as a church? This is not something that strikes me as something that a church would embrace, and yet it's been a big part of GOA.
Yes. First, we were contacted by people who had come to Kenya as refugees from Burundi, from Rwanda, who had run away as a result of the genocide, and we picked them and started taking care of them in Kenya. Some of them were already having a call and visionally, so we brought them close to our leadership. In the process of that, living with them and listening to their stories, we began to hear how important, or to see the need to go back to their country and try to take the message of healing and restoration. And when we went there, we discovered that our message was being listened to and taken more seriously than the bishops and the church in their country. And when we tried to find out why, they said because they feel that the church in their countries participated in the genocide, directly or indirectly, and therefore they would not listen to them, but yet they were willing to receive the message from a church coming outside their country. So we saw the need, and that gave us the opportunity to restore many families, to preach message of reconciliation. Little did we know that God was preparing us for 2007 post-election violence in our own country, because conflict broke resulting from similar things of tribal issues as to who is going to be president, who is going to be voting who, and so we ended up again the same methods, the same principles, the same style we had seen work in Rwanda is what we brought into our own country, and we became instruments or agents of peace, reconciliation, and from there, needs went on manifesting themselves, including conflicts in families, including conflicts in churches, one church against the other, and so God just blessed us, and we ended up blooding ourselves as peace ambassadors, and to the extent that I was given a Dyer Award for peace ambassador in the country because of those initiatives. And this has opened many doors of reconciliation, arbitration, and a few years ago our government said the cases in court have become too many, and because there are very few magistrates, and they said they would want to encourage mediation and other alternative dispute resolution means. So we have become part of that, and we are doing a lot of mediation. And my last-born daughter, who is becoming a lawyer, is completing law school, is leading us in mediation, which is officially recognized as a peaceful way of resolving conflicts that you don't have to go to court.
Right, and that had also the effect of raising your profile as a leader in all of Kenya.
Yes, it did. It did, and gave me an opportunity to meet in very high level dispute and conflict resolution matters, and which as an opportunity also for sharing the gospel.
Absolutely. It has raised the profile of GOA and your profile to the point that that during the conflict you addressed the Parliament of Kenya, right?
Yes, exactly. That was a big highlight in my life, resulting from those results.
And a wonderful opportunity, as you say, for GOA to proclaim the gospel
Yep.
through this really sovereign work of God leading you through all these years into this area. Well, David, I so appreciate having had this conversation with you. I am sure everybody hearing us has. I believe we might have had a conversation that is long enough for 2 episodes, and so this is really wonderful. Thank you. One last word. What would an African seasoned leader like you would have to say to those who are interested in leading and interested in leading for the kingdom of God in this season of our lives, of our history?
Yes, I would like to speak to the viewer or listener and tell them that leadership is extremely important for all the way from the smallest unit of a family to the village, to the nation, to internationally, and everyone in one place or one time or the other has an opportunity to influence others, which is what leadership is about. And if we can do it and do it well, then we will build a better world. All these things we have been talking about, the peace and conflict and hunger and starvation and orphans, we would reduce that if we are able to invest more in leadership, and especially if you can invest more in training of leaders so that we have more effective leaders, all the way from the family unit, who make the family their priority, and all the way to their churches and nations. We would have a better world where with systems that function, with organizations that are goal-oriented and with servant leadership, with people who care and mind about each other. So leadership is important to every one of us individually, and it would be great if we can all invest in ourselves to become better leaders and invest in others to become better leaders.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that, David. At some level, everyone is a leader because everyone influences others. And so if you are a leader, and just like we said, everyone is a leader, and if you're interested in exploring the 8 core values of the best leaders, check out iliteam.org, and you'll be able to find ways that you can enable yourself and train yourself to lead with a kingdom of God mentality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us to promote it. Please help us to spread it to others. Give us a like, make a comment. It helps the algorithm. And also share it with people whom might be benefited from it. Now, also, if you want to connect with Bishop David and GOA is doing an amazing job. David, how can they connect with you and with GOA?
Thank you. Anyone who would like to connect with us, we are all over the place in the social media. You can just find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, and in all those places, we go by the same names: Bishop David Munyere Thagana. Everywhere, in all those social medias, it is Bishop David Munyere Thagana. YouTube, everywhere. And of course, we also have email addresses. which you could easily find there, Bishop Thagana at goaweb.org. That is my email, and I'm available. I'm available on every other means. I even have a website, personal website, which is davidthagana.com. At davidthagana.com, you'll find me there, and you'll be directed to everywhere else. And of course, around the world, I represent International Leadership Institute, and I'm excited to connect with people who are in the International Leadership Institute family all over the world. We have seen God use these 8 core values and to build a global family of people who really care about leadership.
Amen.
Thank you.
That's true. Actually, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put all of those links that Bishop David talked about on our show notes, on the comments, on the comment section, and the description of the video on YouTube. Make sure to check Glory Outreach Assembly, Bishop Thagana, all of his social media to see the amazing things that are going on all over this world. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. God bless.